Right now, somewhere in the world, someone is swallowing a pill for pain that a plant already solved 3,000 years ago. The global pain medication industry generates over $80 billion every single year, and the most profitable part of that business depends on one thing: that you never find out what you are about to watch. These are 11 plants that kill pain. Not according to folk medicine, not according to your grandmother, according to peer-reviewed clinical trials published in journals your doctor reads. And not one of them is in your medicine cabinet. Stay until number 7. What the ancient Egyptians knew about pain that modern pharmacology is only beginning to understand will change the way you look at the world forever. Stay until number 7. What the ancient Egyptians knew about pain that modern pharmacology is only beginning to understand will change the way you look at the world forever. Plant number 11. Jamaica dogwood. This one starts with fish. In the 19th century, Caribbean fishermen discovered that when the bark of this tree was thrown into water, fish became sedated. Not dead, sedated. They floated to the surface, were collected, and fully recovered when returned to clean water. Physicians took notice immediately. Jamaica dogwood, Pisidia piscipula, entered early American medicine as a sedative and analgesic for situations where morphine was unavailable or inappropriate. Neuralgia, insomnia, severe pain. It was listed in formal medical references. Then morphine became cheap, standardized, patentable, and Jamaica dogwood disappeared from medical practice, not because it stopped working, but because it couldn't compete with a profit model. It still grows across the Caribbean. The compounds are still there. The evidence is still there.
Plant number 10. Meadowsweet.
Here is something the official history of aspirin quietly leaves out. In 1838, nearly 60 years before Bayer's famous patent, a compound was isolated from a plant growing in the wet meadows of Europe. Not white willow, meadowsweet, Filipendula ulmaria. Medieval healers had used it for centuries for fever, headaches, and joint pain. It worked so reliably and so widely that when chemists finally synthesized the active compound, they named the new drug after it. Spirin, from spirea, the old botanical name for meadowsweet. Aspirin was literally named after this plant. Then the plant was replaced by the pill. Then the pill was sold back to the world at $30 a bottle. Meadowsweet still grows across Europe and North America. It still contains the same compounds. It has never stopped working. Plant number 9. California poppy. It is the state flower of California. It blooms every spring along highways, in empty lots, in backyard gardens across the entire Western world. Most people walk past it without a second thought. California poppy, Eschscholzia californica, is not an opium poppy. No morphine, no codeine, no addictive compounds of any kind. But it does contain alkaloids that bind directly to GABA receptors in the brain. The same receptors, the same mechanism, targeted by a class of pharmaceutical drugs generating billions of dollars annually. Native American tribes across California used this plant as a painkiller and sedative for generations. It grows so aggressively, it is classified as invasive in some regions. It is growing in fields right now, doing exactly what people are paying their insurance companies for. And almost no one knows. Plant number 8. Corydalis. For over 1,000 years, traditional Chinese medicine used this plant for every kind of pain. Headaches, menstrual cramps, back injuries, nerve damage. In 2014, researchers at the University of California, Irvine finally understood why. Corydalis contains a compound called dihydrocorybulbine. Published in the journal Current Biology, the study identified it as a natural painkiller that operates through dopamine receptors. the same pathway targeted by some of the most powerful controlled substances in existence. Here is the critical difference. Unlike opioids, it does not appear to cause tolerance. It does not appear to cause dependence. A plant that blocks pain through a mechanism comparable to prescription opioids without the addiction crisis attached to it. Western medicine published that research in 2014, then moved on to the next opioid patent. Plant number 7, Blue Lotus. This is the one I told you to stay for. In the tombs of ancient Egypt, carved into temple walls, painted across burial chambers, woven into the garlands placed on mummified bodies, one plant appears more than almost any other. Blue Lotus, Nymphaea caerulea. For over 3,000 years, Egyptian healers used it as a pain reliever, a sedative, and an anxiolytic. It was considered sacred. It accompanied the dead because it was believed to ease their passage. Modern pharmacology has now identified the reason. 2 alkaloids, nuciferine and apomorphine. Both interact directly with dopamine receptors. Both produce measurable sedative and analgesic effects, confirmed in laboratory research. One of the most advanced civilizations in human history built their medicine around this plant for 3 millennia. Almost no one alive today knows it exists. Plant number 6, Feverfew. In 1988, the British Medical Journal published a clinical trial. Feverfew, a small flowering plant in the daisy family, was tested against placebo in migraine sufferers. Significant reduction in frequency, significant reduction in severity. The evidence was real and the methodology was sound. The pharmaceutical industry's response was silence. Feverfew contains parthenolide, a compound that works through a completely different mechanism than any migraine drug on the market. It inhibits platelet aggregation. It reduces the release of inflammatory substances that trigger migraine attacks. It has been growing in European gardens as a common perennial for over 2,000 years. It returns every spring without any care. It requires nothing. The study was published, the evidence held, and the drug companies developed patentable alternatives instead, now taken by millions of people who have never once been told that a plant in their garden does the same thing. Plant number 5, Arnica. You may have seen this name on a bottle in a pharmacy, probably a small expensive gel tucked between the supplements and the prescription counter. What the label doesn't tell you is that it grows wild across mountain meadows in Europe and North America. It has been applied to bruises, sprains, and muscle injuries in folk medicine for centuries, and it has now been validated by the highest standard of medical evidence available. A systematic review in the Cochrane database, the most rigorous evidence framework in medicine, found that Arnica gel reduces pain and improves function in arthritis patients as effectively as Ibuprofen gel. Post-surgical studies found performance on par with prescription pain medication, with fewer side effects in several cases. It grows in meadows. It works like Ibuprofen. The only difference is the price, and who profits. Plant number 4, Tart Cherry. This one might be growing in your backyard right now. Tart cherries contain a phytochemical called cyanidin, and cyanidin does something that should have made international headlines. It inhibits the exact same COX enzymes that ibuprofen targets. Same biological pathway, same mechanism of action, documented in peer-reviewed research, without the gastrointestinal bleeding, without the cardiovascular risk, without the long-term liver strain. Studies have confirmed reduced post-exercise muscle pain, faster recovery time, and improved mobility in patients with knee osteoarthritis. One tree, planted once, producing pain relief every single summer for decades. No prescription required. Plant number 3, Boswellia. In 2003, researchers conducted a direct clinical comparison. Boswellia extract versus diclofenac, a powerful prescription anti-inflammatory in patients with active osteoarthritis. Boswellia 1. Greater pain reduction, better mobility improvement, superior tolerability, less stomach damage, better long-term outcomes. The active compounds, boswellic acids, inhibit the enzyme 5-lipoxygenase, one of the primary drivers of chronic inflammation. Unlike NSAIDs, they do this without damaging the gastrointestinal lining or accelerating joint deterioration. Ayurvedic physicians in India had been using this tree resin for exactly this purpose for 3,000 years before that study was published. Western medicine read the results, then quietly moved on. Plant number 2. Devil's Claw. The Kalahari Desert, Southern Africa, one of the harshest environments on the planet. For centuries, the San people, one of the oldest human populations on Earth, used the bitter root of this plant for arthritis, back pain, and fever. Modern science eventually ran more than 50 human clinical studies on it. 50. Devil's Claw contains harpagicides, compounds that block inflammatory pathways at a level comparable to prescription anti-inflammatory drugs. A review in the journal Molecules found it performed as well as traditional prescription pain relievers, both topically and orally. The evidence for hip pain, knee pain, and lower back pain is among the strongest of any natural compound ever studied. It never entered mainstream Western medicine. Not because it failed, because a root growing in the African desert cannot be owned. Plant number 1. White willow bark. In 1897, a chemist at Bayer synthesized a compound called acetyl salicylic acid and named it aspirin. What the history books leave out is that he didn't invent anything. White willow bark had been used for pain relief for over 3,500 years before that moment. Ancient Egyptians prescribed it for fever. Hippocrates documented its use for headaches in 400 BC. Native Americans used it for joint pain centuries before European contact. The active compound, salicin, converts to salicylic acid in the liver, the exact same mechanism as aspirin. Multiple randomized controlled trials have confirmed it reduces chronic lower back pain as effectively as prescription NSAIDs, with significantly fewer side effects. Bayer isolated the molecule, filed the patent, and within a generation, the tree that gave the world aspirin had been replaced by a pill that cost nothing to make and billions to sell. White willow grows in almost any climate. It thrives near water. It asks for nothing. The original aspirin has been growing on this planet for millions of years. It was only forgotten for about 100. 11 plants. Thousands of years of documented use. Peer-reviewed science that confirms what ancient healers already knew. None of them requiring a prescription. None of them generating a profit for anyone. Which is exactly why you have never heard of them. If this reached you, share it with someone who is still paying for what nature already solved. Subscribe to Fathom Earth. We go deeper.